أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Say praises and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and durood and blessings on the holy noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are honored today to be in the house of Allah for another day of Jumu'ah, for another Jumu'ah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all our efforts and all our prayers and all our du'as. May He have mercy on us. Today we make dua for those who are sick in our community, those who are elders, and those that are in need. A number of our members of the masjid left today for Umrah. Our president, Brother Nazar Mustafa and his family, Brother Alim and his family, and our Imam. And so we ask Allah to take them there safely, to accept their efforts, to accept their Umrah, to accept all their du'as. I'm sure they will make for all of us in this Jama'ah and for the entire Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to bring them back safely, inshallah, to their homes and to bring them back to the masjid, inshallah. You know, I was reading a story the other day, and it was a story written about the plight and the difficulties of the people of the Palestine, and more so now Lebanon. And in the story that was written, it reminded of the difficulty, of the harsh difficulty of the children and the adults and the women especially who are suffering daily. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. And I ask all of you, in the very simplest of terms, that when you pray your salah, when you pray, even if it means you pray alone at home, or you pray in the masjid, ask every 5 salah on a daily basis for Allah to shower His favors and mercy and to take them out of the difficulty you're in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. And Allah reminds us in Surah Wadduha, وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. May Allah give them that what He promised them in the Jannah, inshallah. We are closely finishing up the project that we did over there. Some of you may know there was an empty piece of land that we bought nearly for $100,000, and our masjid can't be extended any more than it is, but we have made arrangements obviously to make that facility over there for overflow. In the winter months it's very difficult, it's cold, so we're putting heat, and Uncle is doing a really fantastic job in getting all the heat and all the air conditioning and everything finished. But in the meanwhile, that's not finished yet, so please make space for the brothers who may come in late because it's still cold. But if it is full in here, yes, they will go outside. Yeah, make space if you can. Fill the gaps. Come up and fill the gaps so that later on, if he doesn't have to spend time doing that, inshallah. We want to thank all of you for your continued support for this masjid. It is a place that is open to every single one of you. And know that you are our brothers, you are our sisters in Islam, and we are always here for you. If you need our help, Imam and all the members of the masjid is here. We have a very vibrant madrasa that is being run, and our khatib today is part of that teaching process. He is a wonderful young man, and his dad is here today, and I want to acknowledge all our elders. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower His favors and mercy on all of you. May He accept our du'as, and may He keep us safe and keep us away from all troubles and all disasters and all calamities. Ameen, Ya Rab, our Imam Wasim. There's a set of keys up here. I'm not sure if it belongs to anyone specifically, but if it is, take a minute.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فاتقوا الله عباد الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون عباد الله يقول تبارك وتعالى الله الذي خلقكم من ضعف ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة ثم جعل من بعد قوة ضعفا وشيبا يخلق ما يشاء وهو العليم القدير. الشباب هو قوة بين الضعفين، قوة بين ضعف الطفولة وضعف الشقوق. وما بكت العرب على شيء كما بكت على الشباب، حتى قال قائلهم ألا ليت الشباب يعود يوما فأخبره بما فعل المشيب. الشباب فترة زمانية لها قيمتها ومكانتها في الحياة، فهي باكورة الحياة وأطيب العيش أوائلها، كما أن أطيب الثمار بواكرها. والشباب مرحلة فتوة ونضارة. الشباب هم رجال الغد وآباء المستقبل، وعليهم مهمة تربية الأجيال القادمة، وإليهم تؤول قيادة الأمة في جميع مجالاتها. وفي صلاح الشباب صلاح للأمة، ومما لا شك فيه أن فترة الشباب هي مرحلة القوة والفتوة. مرحلة الشباب مرحلة من مراحل العمر لم يكتمل نضجها بعد، فهي قابلة للتشكيل والتغيير. ومن هنا يتأتى دور الأسرة والمربين في توجيههما إلى الخير والبذل المزيد من التربية والرعاية والاهتمام. ينشأ الناشئ الفتيان منا على ما كان عوده أبوه، وما دام الفتى بحجا ولكن يعوده تدين أقربه. O Muslims, a beautiful story during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are some people from, they said, the part of Najd, they had accepted Islam, and they requested that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a delegation to go and teach them. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gathered 70 among the young men from the Ansar. 70 from the young men of the Ansar. Yusammihim Qura. They were called the people that used to recite, meaning that they're busy learning. And these 70 young lads, what they used to do is that they used to spend time learning about Islam, perfecting their learning of the Quran and learning of the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he used to spend the evening and the night as well, learning about Islam. And then when the morning comes, he used to get up with full energy. And he used to go and fetch water. And he used to fill the containers of the masjid. And he used to also go and fetch firewoods. And they would sell these firewoods. And they would give the poor. And they would provide food for Ahlul Safa, for the people of the Saf, the poor, the very, very poor and needy people that didn't have anywhere to stay or live or cannot sustain themselves. So they used to have to stay in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so these young lads, they used to help to give them food as well. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he chose 70 among them for them to go on this mission, to go and teach these people of Najd, to teach them about Islam, because they said that they now accepted Islam. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent them out. And on the way, they reached Bikrul Ma'una, a well that was famous. And they were deceived. They were deceived and they were attacked. And all of them, they were killed. And was a mere deception. And so when the news reached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was very sad. And for 15 days in Medina, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made qunut in salah for them. Because these young lads, they were vibrant and they were keen in Islam, in learning about Islam, and they were keen in helping. And they had a good future in their life. And they were willing to answer the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the requests of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were youth and they were young. Muslims, youthful age, and people that are young, they have energy. And as long as they uphold their belief, they are steadfast in their belief, and they are strong in their conviction when they are convinced about something. They would not give it up. And once the old people, they have their role to play as people that would guide the young people, but the shabab, the young people, they are the one to uphold the reign of Islam for the future. They're the one that would take the reign of Islam and make it more appropriate for the future to come. That would uphold the principle of this deen. And they would understand their generation and the generation to come. And most of the Anbiya, as Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he said, most of the prophets, they were shabab, they were youngsters. And most of the ulama, they were youngsters. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned about the youngsters. And among them is Ibrahim alayhi salam. لَقَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ. That Ibrahim is a great example. And what's the great example of Ibrahim alayhi salam is that when he was convinced upon Tawheed, when he was convinced that La ilaha illallah, that no one else that should be worshipped except Allah, and that conviction hit him, he was willing to stand up against the norm of the society at that time, who used to worship other than Allah. And he came to his father and said, Ya abati, lima ta'budu ma la yasma'u wa la yubsiru wa la yughni anka shay'a. That, oh my father, why do you worship that which doesn't hear, or cannot see, or cannot benefit you in any way? Ya abati la ta'budu shaytan, inna shaytana kana lil insani aduwa. That, oh my father, don't worship shaitan. That verily shaitan is an open enemy to you. He was willing to stand up against the norm of the society. And he stood for it. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, from him is known to be the millat Ibrahimiyya, the deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَوَصَيْنَا الْإِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبَ. And Ibrahim advised who? His children, his young children, بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبَ. His children and Yaqub, for them to worship Allah, and for them not to die except that they are Muslims submitting to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And when they realized what had happened to them and their idols being broken, that Ibrahim wants to bring them to that realization that these idols, they don't hear and they don't listen and they can't help you. They said, قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. That we heard a youngster, that he was disapproved of what we worship, and his name was Ibrahim. And the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, that we learn so much from. And as young people, you learn from Yusuf alayhi salam how he protected himself despite being in the house of the Aziz. That he protected himself and he guarded himself against the desires that young people they are filled with. But Yusuf alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran for us to reflect that young people, that we need to guard ourselves. And Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf about those young lads. About those young lads, he said, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. That they were young lads who believed, who were convinced in Allah, that they should not worship anyone else other than Allah. And even though the whole society worshipped other than Allah, they were convinced as to what they are upon is the haqq. And so they went away from the shirk that the people used to worship, and they went away in the cave, reminding us every Jumu'ah about the steadfastness of these young men, that we should be steadfast the same way, despite what we are surrounded by, and we are surrounded with. O Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that among the people that would have his shade, the Allah's shade, يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلِّ شَابٌ نَشَأَ فِي طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. The people that would have the shade of Allah, the day that there would be no shade, would be a young lad or a young man who been brought up with the ta'at of Allah, with the obedience of Allah, who guard themselves, who protected themselves. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that whosoever safeguard what is between their tongue and their private parts, and they safeguard it, Allah will guarantee for them Jannah. O Muslims, there are many, many emphases in the Quran and in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regards to young people. And as Muslims, if we are young, then we need to take on board that we need to uphold our faith, and we need to guard ourselves and safeguard ourselves, and we need to learn our deen and our religion. And those who are younger, then we have a duty to teach them. And those who are older, we have a duty to guide them and make sure that they are upon guidance. أقول قولي هذا واستغفري ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. If we look at the early Muslims, those that have accepted Islam, they were all youthful people. And they were all below the age of Arba'in, of 40 years old. And a person is considered as being a youth when they reach the age of puberty until 40 years old. حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإنني من المسلمين. Until when you reach the age of 40. And beyond 40 is considered as being shaykhuka. meaning that you have reached old age. But if you look at the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, most of them, they were young. And they were full of energy, eagerness. And they are the ones that made changes that uphold Islam from then until it reaches us here today. The Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, how old was he? He was 38 years old, below 40. Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, how old was he? 27 years old. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, how old was he? 33 years old. Ali bin Abi Talib, the fourth Khalifa of the Muslims, when he accepted Islam, how old was he? He was still a young lad. He was still a young lad. And that young lad, the eagerness that he had and the companions that he had, that they were willing to give up their wealth, like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, or Umar bin al-Khattab, and Uthman radiallahu anhu, and their life for the sake of Allah. Now when the Quraysh in Makkah, they want to finally get rid of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they decided to kill him. إِذْ يَمْكُرُ بِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُثْبِتُوكَ وَيَقْتُلُوكَ أَوْ يُخْرِجُوكَ وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And when they decided to either imprison the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or exile him, or kill him, who was the one that slept in the bed of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, willing to give up his life for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. O Muslims, among the young stalwarts, or young lad, or young people that have contributed greatly in Islam, was Usama ibn Zayd. That he hadn't even reached 17, and he was a leader of the army going towards Rome. That the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sent out. And during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when there were disturbance in Medina, Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu, he suggested that Usama bin Zayd and his army come back in Medina and help. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said that I would never bring back Usama bin Zayd, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent him out. And who am I to bring him back? And among them was Utab ibn Usayd. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he conquered Makkah, and he left a young person that was only 22 years old, as being the governor of Makkah. And from these young people, Islam flourished. Once they were the old of Makkah, of Quraysh, who decided to uphold and behold whatever their forefathers believe in and whatever they practice, young people, they took up Islam and they're ready to change the society and made a change that amazed the world up to this day. O Muslims, why our youngsters are so important? Because they would take Islam further than us. They have better energy than us. They know the society better than us because they go to the school and they mix with the society and they speak their language and they know their understanding. And they would be more effective in our community than us that are old. Perhaps we don't perfect the language and our information cannot be delivered to the wider community like how they could. And as a result, O Muslims, we should guide our young generation for them to have the guidance of Allah, so they are fully equipped. They are fully equipped to take Islam further than us. And for us to accommodate them and create activities or programs that could cater for them to be in the house of Allah. Because if you look at the house of Allah on a daily basis, then we find that most of our line is filled with people that are old. Our youngsters, we don't find them in the masjid. We don't find the generation that will take Islam. We don't find them in the masjid. Neither masjids and community, they don't open their arms wide enough. And they don't cater for them so that they could be in the masjid. And they could be in the community, help the community. O Muslims, our youngsters, most of them that perhaps reach the age of 14, they're either in college or in university. And during that age, the age of adolescence, changes that take place in the body that we all went through, and how difficult that age is mentally and physically, and how much strain it causes on the young man and young woman. And from that environment that is mixed, they need some guidance, some comfort, a place that they could be able to speak and understand one another where they are coming from. And that place, the best fit place, is the masajid. Lastly, O Muslims, that our youngsters, they reach the age of puberty. And at the age of puberty, the 5 daily prayer is compulsory upon them. It's fard. It's fard upon them that they pray the 5 daily prayer. And there is no choice in the matter. The 5 daily prayer and the Jumu'ah is also compulsory upon them. But the question is that they are at university and they are at school. Do they have a place? Do they have a place at their school or at their university, that they could pray their salah or at least establish Jumu'ah. And how much are we helping them or speaking to the school that they attend and they go to, for them to have their Jumu'ah, and for them to establish their prayer, so that they be Muslims wherever they are and they could practice their Islam wherever they are. We beg and pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that Allah enlighten us as to what is true from what is false, and open our hearts with regards to our younger generation. اللهم أصلحنا وأصلح شباب المسلمين. اللهم أصلحنا وأصلح فتيات المسلمين. اللهم أصلحنا وأصلح نساء المسلمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وذل شرك المشركين ودمر أعداءك وأعداء الدين. ربنا لا تضع في مقامنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا من له حاجة من حوائج الدنيا إلى فرضاه ولنا فيه صلاة إلا أنت وعليه الصلاة وعليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اصلح اخوان المسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم حرر المسجد الاقصى من الصهاينه المعتدين. اللهم اصلح اخوان المسلمين في غزه وفي الشام وفي برما وفي غيرها من بلاد المسلمين غير بلاد المسلمين يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر.